So this video is going to go over how to compare ratios, and the easiest way to do this is just by looking at some actual problems where you're asked to compare ratios. So let's say that I'm mixing paint, and I've got two different types that I'm going to be mixing. The first one, I'm going to be mixing 2 gallons of white paint with 4 ounces of blue, and in the second one, I'm going to be mixing 4 ounces of white paint and 6 ounces of blue. And what I'm going to be looking for is which paint mixture is going to be darker when I mix them all together. So I'm going to label this first one mixture 1 and the second one mixture 2, just so that I can keep track of it. And I'm going to write down their ratios in a ratio table. Now, right now when I look at these, I don't really have a good idea. It's hard to decide which one's going to be darker because I don't really have a good understanding of what the relationship is. So the first step that you're going to be doing when comparing ratios is always going to be to get one term to be the same. So one part of the ratio to be the same for each different ratio. So when looking at mixture 1 and mixture 2, I can either get my blue to be the same or I can get my white to be the same. So I'm going to look at my terms and I'm going to see that, well, I see that 2 is actually a factor of 4. So I could just, or 4 is a multiple of 2, whichever one you want to look at it. So I could just scale mixture 1 up by 2, which would give me a new ratio of 8:4. And even though this ratio isn't the exact amount of paint that I'm going to be mixing in mixture 1, it still is going to maintain that same relationship. So it'll still be the same color. So now we've done the first step, which was get one of the terms to be the same. And now we're going to do the second step, which is going to be evaluate the ratios. So looking up here, if I have the same amount of white, but in mixture 1, I'm going to be adding 8 ounces of blue. And in mixture 2, I'm going to be adding 6 ounces of blue. Then if I'm adding more blue paint, then I know that the mixture is going to be darker. So my answer will be that mixture 1 is darker than mixture 2. Now let's try one more example because that first one was pretty simple and sometimes they're not quite as simple. Now, I like this example because it's actually more applicable. Like this is something that you will do as you grow up in your everyday life all the time, and that is comparing prices. So let's say that I have 2 stores here, and the first store that I'm going to have sells 5 apples for $11, and the second store sells 6 apples for $13. And what we want to figure out is which store sells the apples at a better price. So if you're using this video to review right now and check your understanding, a really good idea is to pause this video. You can look at the steps up here, and I want you to try to solve this problem by yourself. And when you get done, go ahead and resume the video. Okay, let's solve this problem the exact same way that we did the other. So first, starting off, I'm going to set up a ratio table where I have 5 apples for $11 in store 1, and store 2 is going to have 6 apples for $13. So first step, I want to get them to be one of my terms to be the same. So I either need to get the apples to be the same or the cost to be the same. And when I look at these, it's not as apparent, is it, which one I should choose? To me, 5 and 6 seem to be easier numbers to work with than 11 and 13. So I'm going to get my apples to be the same. So I need to think about how can I get 5 and 6 to become the same number? And so I'm going to go and think about the least common multiple. So if I think about the least common multiple between 5 and 6, I know that's going to be 30. So I know that I'm going to get both of my ratios to have 30 apples, which means I need to scale store 1's ratio up by 6, and I need to scale store 2's ratio up by 5. And when I do that, I will get 30 apples would cost me $66. And store 2, I would have 30 apples will cost me $65. So now that I've gotten my apples to be the same, I need to reevaluate the ratio so that I can decide which one's going to have the better price. And when I do that, I can see that for store 1, I can get 30 apples for $66. And for store 2, I can get 30 apples for $65. So that tells me that store 2 has a cheaper price. And that's how you compare ratios. Go ahead and use some of those practice problems if you want to get some extra practice off to the side.